episode of Titus 2 Ministries presents Family Matters. My name is Evangeline Johnson, and I'm your humble host. I'm so glad you're here today. If you're joining us for the first time, we talk about all things family. And right now, we're in the middle of book and workbook, Love and Respect, by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. And so my husband has joined me from time to time. It's been a couple sessions. He hasn't made it on, and today is another one of those days. So, but he'll hopefully be back next week, next episode. But today we have to keep it moving. You ladies know we have to keep it moving. So today we're picking up where we left off. And before we move forward, I do want to ask that you like, subscribe, and then share. Share this. If you think that if you feel like you have a family member, a friend, or someone you just want to share this with, then yes, please share it. Please share it. All right. And don't forget to comment. Don't forget to leave me some of your nuggets, even your experiences. If anything resonates that you can relate to and chime in, feel free to do that. All right. So we've gone through the first half of the book, or yes, the first half. First half talked about the crazy cycle. You all remember that, okay? Without love, she reacts without respect. And we know that love is her deepest need. Respect is his deepest need. And it's not just in married couples, but it's those who are dating and seriously dating, and it may go to that next level of marriage. Get in on this. Better to know it, actually, before you get married than to step in a bunch of mess and then try to figure it all out. Okay? Just make it in plain. So, with today's episode, Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, you ladies recall the first half, he focused in on how to learn this respect thing. And he did that to kind of bring that concept to a lot of us ladies who have never really realized how important respect is to the men. And so he spent a lot of time on that. So now he's starting the second half of the book talking about women, showing the men how to really and truly love the woman. Now, one thing that is important to note, it's more to loving someone than saying it. And I know a lot of people, not everybody, don't want to generalize, but a lot of people will put a lot of stock in the words. But what if I say I love you all the time, but never did anything? Never brought any receipts. I don't have any receipts to prove that you really do love me. Then do you love me because you say you love me? Those are things you want to look at, men. I don't want to just tell my wife. She wants to hear it. But I don't want to just tell my wife I love her. Come on. But I want to show her. And that's what we're wanting you to get. That's why we're going through this book and workbook. Going through the workbook actually asks questions and gives us things to think about as we move forward. So today we're looking at chapter 12 of the book, and Emerson started the second half of the book looking at the acronym COUPLE to help the men out. the best way to spell love for your wife is to take these principles, and he's used couple to help the men remember what to do, how to do it, to break all that down so that you know how to move and maneuver in your marriage, in your relationship. Okay? Because I don't want to always make it sound like this is just for married couples, but those who are dating as well. Get this in. So we know that the C stood for closeness. She wants you to be close to her. The O stands for openness. She wants you to open up to her. Open up those deep places that you've never let anyone else in. Your wife wants to be close. Your wife wants you to be open. And then understanding. Understanding is, understand me. Don't try to fix me. Just listen. Listen. And when you listen, it helps your understanding. But really lean in and listen. Those so far are things and principles that will show your wife, your future wife, that you love her. Not just you saying it, but when you draw close to her, when you open up to her, and when you understand her or seek to understand her. Some men are probably saying, yeah, I heard you. There's no way I'm ever going to understand her. When you seek to understand her, when you're at least trying, we give you grace for that. At least he's trying, okay? But today we're going to look at peacemaking, the P, C-O-U-P, peacemaking. So in Matthew 5:9, it says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. So it's important to work at being a peacemaker anyway, but better yet, in your relationship with your wife or your future wife. Be the peacemaker that speaks love. And one of the things that Emerson brought out, he was saying, out of all of the principles, he felt like this was the one. This was the main one. And when I first considered it, I said, well, that closeness is pretty good. That openness is important, and understanding is definitely important. But then, as I read that chapter, I'm like, you know what? He's right. Because if I'm not at peace with my husband, really, I don't want to be close. I could care less about the close. If there's a friction and no peace, I want some peace. Then I can feel that closeness. And that openness thing, if there's no peace, why are you opening up to me? There's no peace. There's an unsettledness in our relationship right now. Let's get the peace back in the relationship. And then that understanding, I could care less if you understand me if you don't have peace with me. And so it's really, when I broke it down that way in my mind, it was like, okay, I understand it. I get you, Emerson. Peacemaking is important. We want peace. We want to be able to come home and it not be friction. Live in our home and not be at each other, but there be a level of peace. And so I got it. And that is important. So peacemaking. So what can we do? Women, to embrace this peacemaking, let's make sure that we're accepting of it, that we are excited about it. This is the energizing cycle. This second half of this book is the energizing cycle. So these are things that bring energy to the relationship. Okay. So, one of the things Emerson looks at, and I guess he quickly goes into, let me see. Well, he does give some pointers on what you can do that'll make your wife or your future wife feel at peace with you. She feels at peace with you when. And ladies, this is where you can comment. If there's something that Emerson didn't mention in his book, then you can add yours to the comments. Add it. Okay, what'll bring peace in the relationship? Uh, she'll feel at peace with you when you let her vent her frustration and hurts, and you don't get angry or close her off. Allow her that opportunity to vent, and don't try to manage or change the vent. I've experienced that before. Like, don't try to tell me what I feel. I think that I got you ladies. Because sometimes that can happen too. And we'll kind of morph into that. I know this is what I feel. So again, that's back to that understanding. Let us express or vent our frustrations, but then don't try to add to it. Don't try to fix it by adding to it and making it sound like, well, this is what you really mean. No, this is what I mean. Just understand. Don't be angry, but just try to understand, or just be a shoulder for us to lean on while we vent. A listening ear while we vent. There are days that frustrations are high. So help us out so we'll feel at peace with you when you do that. When you admit that you're wrong and apologize by saying, I'm sorry. But my thing, I saw that and I agree with that. That helps. But my thing is, it has to be genuine. And you ladies can attest to that. We can feel, what is it, that woman's intuition? We can feel if it's not genuine. You're saying it just to get us off your back. You're saying it just to please us. You think it's going to please us. But if it's not, the genuineness of the apology is not felt, then it's like, you wasted your time. You could have kept that. So just make sure we feel that your apology is genuine, and really feel it. The only way it can be genuine if it is for real. So be for real when you apologize. And if you're not ready to be for real when you apologize, hold off on it until you are. Okay. All right. She'll feel at peace with you when you understand her natural desire to negotiate, compromise, defer. We want to talk about this and maybe when it's talking about compromise, let's meet somewhere in the middle. Let's meet halfway. We may not agree completely, but let's find a happy medium, a place that you can live with and a place that we can live with as women, because we want peace. We want peace. And if we feel like you're working at it, we'll meet you halfway. It does not, it really, in all reality, it does not always have to be our way or the highway. Or if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. It doesn't always have to be like that. And so we just compromise, just negotiate with us. Let's come to a happy medium, and we'll feel like you're working at being at peace with us when that happens. Um, the next thing he looks at, and again, this may be sparking some thoughts in your mind, ladies, of what else can my spouse do or my future spouse do to help me feel like he's working on this peace thing. Um, so the next thing is when you try to keep your relationship up to date by resolving the unresolved issues in the relationship and never saying, "I'll forget it," or "forget about it." Just forget about it. Wait a minute. We need to work on it. We need to talk about it. And I know men like to close off, and I told you all in one of the previous episodes, when the arguments or when the conversation gets high and heated, then I'm the one who says, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just table this and shut down. And so I have to do that so that I don't say anything that I'll regret and have to come back and apologize anyway. So better to just, in fact, the other day I was dealing with something, just had a lot on my plate. And my husband's, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I'm okay. I'm good. I can tell something's wrong." I'm like, "Look, now this is getting ready to be an issue right here." So just hold on, because we do want to resolve the issue. We don't want to just sock it away and bury it. That's where sicknesses and illnesses come from. Is when we just keep stuffing stuff in and down and pressing it down, pressing it down. But no, we want to resolve an issue, but we know that there's a time for everything. And we don't want to let it fester too long, because that can again turn into bitterness, anger and hurt, frustration can turn into all of that. So we want to get to the issue, but there may be times, men, that we need a minute. And then if you need a minute when it's time to talk and resolve, then just let us know. "Oh, well, now's not the time to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Just reminder, we're going to talk about it. But just give me a space so that I'm not saying something that I'll regret and you'll feel hurt." And just as much as we need that space, we can give you grace for that space as well. So I don't know if I've changed what Emerson is saying, because he's saying never say forget it. And I understand that. So don't do that. But if you need that space, don't walk away as if you're saying forget it, as if you're not coming back to it. Just say, "Can we talk about this later?" And then if you have to be the one to bring the conversation back, you be the one. Then that way she knows you're sincere about negotiating and resolving the issue. When you forgive her wrongs, then she feels at peace with you, or you're trying to work on that peace thing. When you forgive her wrongs, me and you asked us to forgive you, so there may be something she needs forgiveness for as well. Because remember, we're all flawed. we came here flawed. So give space and grace, as much space and grace as you would like. Give that. All right. And let's see. She'll feel at peace with you when you never nurse bitterness and you always reassure her of your love. And so never hold on to any bitter thoughts, any bitterness. Remember last episode it talked about not being bitter with your wife. So don't hold on to any bitterness. Get it resolved. Talk about it. Find a safe space. And every now and then it's get out of your home and just go somewhere and talk. Talk it out. And that way you're reassuring her that number one, she's worth the effort. Let's talk about this. You are definitely worth the effort. Okay. And then the last thing Emerson has on here is you pray with her after a hurtful time. So if something has been said that you know has offended or hurt your wife or your future wife, after you apologize, then have prayer that her heart will be softened and that she's not going to now hold on to bitterness. Don't want that. So, all right, ladies, that's what he had. So, men, I hope you understand that. That's what Emerson had in the book. Now, ladies, add something to that. If you've got something else that will help you feel at peace, then let him know. You don't want him guessing. You want to let him know. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about something that does bring a little conflict to the marriage. I'm going to talk about it. There's a section in the book that Emerson looks at. A husband and wife can work it out. That's the heading there in that section. And what he's saying here, he said conflict is in the marriage. And he said every now and then it can be a good thing. It can bring some energy. Energizing cycle, it can bring some energy. Let's think about it. Let's talk through it. So, what conflict in the marriage can bring energy? Now, when we say conflict, it's not at odds. We don't want to stay there. We want to come to a place that we can work it out. So it's understanding so we can work it out. And I'm going to tell you what he's talking about. Where the conflict is, and when I say it, you'll say, ah. And when I say it, if my husband was here, his eyebrows would have gone up. So you all who've seen the past episodes with my husband on here, you know what thing causes his eyebrows to go up. So it is conflict over sex. Conflict over sex. So he mentions he brings up a question, and he says, okay, so after a particularly stressful, frustrating day for you and your spouse, and this one is for just the married folk, okay? You who are dating, this is just for the married folk, okay? So after a stressful day, for both of you, who will decide if you all will be sexually intimate? Who gets to make that decision? And what he says is in his seminars and conferences that he does, he said he just says yes. And what he understands is that it's going to have to be worked out. When both of you are frustrated, stressed, and one partner wants to be intimate, sexually intimate, and the other one is just overwhelmed. And how do you work that? Do you say, okay, yes, every single time? Do you? Or do you need some space and grace? How do you work that out? So talk about that. But I'm going to give you scripture that he uses. And I said I was just going to mention it, but then I said, no, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read what it says. I will read from the King James Version, then I'm going to look at the New Living Translation, and we'll see what it says. We'll see who gets to decide. Okay. King James Version, 1 Corinthians, you all know it, 3-5. We're going to read it. It says, King James Version, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent, there's that working it out, for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, because we know during fasting and prayer, that consecration time, that time you're dedicating to the Lord. So except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for incontinency. And so, looking at that, who has the say? I'm going to read the New Living Translation, because it gives us kind of a more down to earth. That King James Version is more, those words in the King James Version. But this one, the New Living Translation, the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time, so you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. The King James Version said fasting as well, but it's that period of consecration. Afterward, you should come together again, so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Do we have lack of self-control? Incontinency? Is that an issue? Obviously, evidently, it's in the Word. So these are things that's something we have to consider. So who has the say if my husband has authority over my body, if I have authority over his? I'll let y'all work that out. I won't even, I'm like Emerson, I'm not going to step in, I'll let you all work that out. But I just do say there may be times, and because I looked, and I wanted to know, and this is just my own further, Emerson didn't have, this wasn't something I picked up in his book, but I wanted to know, when do women peak sexually? When do men peak sexually? And guess what I found out? Women peak sexually in their 30s. In their 30s, they hit the peak. That means they're ready. Yes, all the time in their 30s. Men, and you all probably will not be surprised, 30s, 40s, and some even in their 50s, their peak lasts a lot longer. Are you all surprised? Are you surprised? I just said, okay, I get it. So understand when we understand that, then that helps us as women to know, okay, I see where this is coming from. You see what I see why my husband's eyes bug. Now he's past his 50s, so I don't know why. Like stop bugging. But we have to understand the hormones. In you know the testosterone level, it doesn't start going down until later in men, and then that estrogen in women, the female hormone, it starts depleting a little sooner. And so those are, if there's some conflict in there, understand it's more physiological than I just don't want to do anything right now. It could be something going on with the hormones. So consider that, and maybe you might need to connect with your. You may need to connect with your physician to get that looked at. Do I need any hormone therapy? That type thing. So something to consider. All right. One last thing, and we hit on it a bit, but I wanted to kind of drive it back home because he brought it up again, Emerson, in the book. He suggests these 3 short sentences be committed to memory. This is for the men. This is showing her you love her. This is that peacemaking. So commit these 3 sentences to memory to help keep the arguments few, to keep that energizing cycle fueled. Remember these 3 sentences. He says, even if, this is what Emerson is saying, this is why I wanted to comment on it. He says, even if in your mind, most of the guilt and blame is hers. If in your mind you're still thinking this is mainly her fault, to still have these 3 sentences ready to say. And one is, honey, the first one is, honey, I'm sorry. He said, commit this to memory. The next is, will you forgive me? Commit this to memory. And then the last one is, I did not mean to do that. I did not mean to do that. Now, the part that got me, and again, women, I got you. The part that got me was the even if you feel like, even if in your mind, most of the guilt or blame is hers. So then that means if you're saying I'm sorry for something you're really not feeling like you need to apologize for. So it's really like pleading guilty when you don't feel like you're guilty. And that takes me back to being, you're not genuine. You're not being honest with the apology. If it is not genuine, then hold off until you see it. Or let's talk about it. If you still feel like this is something, there's some guilt, blame on her end, and it's most of it. And I understand, but I understand the peacemaking part. But at the same time, let's get stuff resolved. Let's get the issues resolved. Let's get them discussed and talked about, is really my point. Don't just say I'm sorry so that you can forget it. Because that's a way to say forget it without saying forget it. If you think me saying I'm sorry is going to cause her to shut it down, I'll say I'm sorry just to get her to be quiet. We'll feel that. And then that ramps up frustration. And that ramps up other issues. So we don't want that crazy cycle. going again. We want to keep that energizing cycle going. We want to keep that fueled. So there may be times you have to sit and say, you know what, I still feel like a lot of this is on you. Let's talk about it. And if it's still a heated period of time on a particular subject, just give it some space. We don't stay upset always. Because if you've got a good, well-intentioned wife, if you've got a praying wife, future wife, God's going to talk to us. Not just you. God's going to talk to us. And vice versa, ladies. If you've got a praying husband, if you've got a well-intentioned husband, if you've got a husband or a future husband who's wanting to be a peacemaker, then God's going to talk to him because he's going to be praying. God's going to talk to him. And so we want to make sure that we're just not saying stuff just to say it. So that's what I wanted to, when I read that, I'm like, come on, Emerson now. Those three things are good. Those three sentences are good to commit to memory. But if you're still feeling like a lot of the issue is your spouse, your wife, your future wife, then don't plead guilty. You're really saying, I'm sorry, I'm guilty. Have mercy on me, forgive me, for something you don't feel like, you don't really feel like is your fault. So, 'cause personally, I know I don't want to plead guilty for something I didn't do. So, but anyway, I hope something has been said. Do you all miss Mr. Johnson? Miss Charles. I miss Charles. I'm looking over at his seat. It's empty. I miss Charles. Hopefully he'll be back next week. He'll come back. But in the meantime, I hope something was said that you can take and work on. She wants to feel the love, not just hear it. She wants the receipts. And this closeness, openness, understanding, and peacemaking. These are gonna be the things that get her closer to feeling the love, feeling that closeness. So we're gonna end with the word of prayer. I thank you once again for joining me. Join me next week as we come back and talk about the L, and the L is loyalty. So we'll look in that and see what that is, and then we'll get to esteem. And then that'll end that couple. But those are the 6 principles, the elements necessary for her to feel the love. Not just to hear you say it, but to feel it. All right. Dear God, we come before you. We thank you once again for allowing us this opportunity to talk, to consider, to pray over your people, your children, the family of God. God, we know family matters to you. Family matters to us as well. We want to be pleasing in your sight. We come to you as we work our way through this book. Open our understanding. Give us ideas, witty inventions, things that are going to help us grow our marriage, grow in love, grow in closeness, because we want to be an example of Christ and the church on this earth. We want our marriages to be examples. We want to be blessed and used by you, oh God. Bless each home, those who are listening and watching. Bless and move in a mighty way. I speak a blessing over each family. The family who's hurting, the family who's dealing with sorrow and pain, the family who's dealing, oh God, with distrust and loyalty issues and issues in the home that they feel like are unbearable. There is nothing too hard for you, God. Show them, remind them in your word. You said, I'll never leave you nor will I forsake you. Remind them that you're there. Show up for them today in some kind of way. Lord, we bless you, we honor you, we thank you. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. All right, y'all. Have a good one.